Hello subscribers, and welcome to our little presentation of two very delicious washed coffees. And welcome to you, Nina.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me.
I'm from the wholesale department we have here at Coffee Collective.
It's a pleasure to have you. And I actually think we should start getting some coffee in our cups. So we brewed up the two filter coffees, and we have the Perez here, and we have the Kieni in the other one. I made these as a little Kalita hand brew. You got to grind the coffee for me.
Yep.
Before. Teamwork. Is this how you drink coffee at home as well?
Mostly what I do at home is Kalita or AeroPress, but it's like differs a bit from season to season. I would say because it's winter in Denmark, I would do mostly Kalita at home because it's like cozy.
What stands out to you as coffee professional?
I would definitely say just right off the bat, when you smell these two coffees, you have a lot of berries and fruit in the Kenyan or in the Kieni one, and in the Colombian Perez, it's more of a sweetness. You can almost like smell the sweetness in the beans or in the coffee.
Yeah, and it's very balanced and round compared to the Kieni that's much more fruity.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you had like Kenyan coffees that stood out, or?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me as well as a lot of other people who are into coffee, is always like this experience of, okay, is this coffee? Can this really be so acidic and light and taste like so much else than what you expect coffee to be? So I think it's definitely all the fruity notes that came through to me in my first Kenyan coffee tastings.
Yeah.
I thought it was really awesome. In general, you get all these like both Central and South American coffees. They have this like reputation of being just like very sweet and like balanced and not so much acidity. And that's why I think the Perez is quite nice, because it has some acidity that balances out some of the sweetness, and sort of gives something else to the cup.
Makes it a little bit more lively than if it's only balanced and sweet. I think that for me, it's always been a thing that in all really good specialty coffee, there is some level of acidity.
Yeah.
Acidity is like what gives it life, what gets your mouth watering and so on.
Yeah, and I also think the acidity in these two cups are very different as well. And I think also in coffee that's a very interesting thing, because acidity is so many different things. For this one, it's much more juiciness. These berries, these fruits, that's really coming through over in the Kieni Kenyan one, where the Colombian, it's more of a light sort of acidity.
I think in Denmark we have like a very strong preference actually for Kenyan coffees. I think on the broad market as well, not just in like high-end specialty.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is actually contributed back to Karen Blixen. That whole feeling that, oh, there's a Danish steak in Kenya. We've heard about the stories about coffee farming there. And I think there's, even if you go to any supermarket in Denmark, you can find actually distinct Kenyan coffees on the shelves. You sell to wholesale to customers all across the world. We export to like 45 different countries or something like that. Do you see different preferences?
Of course, we have some customers who want this one particular bean always, but I think in general people are quite experimental and wants to try different kinds of beans and different flavor profiles within. It differs a lot, but the Kenyans are always, or the Kenyan coffee are always like really high up there.
Yeah.
If it's from more like experimental stuff, and I think, Colombian would be more of a crowd-pleasing thing.
Yeah. So there's maybe a broader market in general for the Colombians, but since maybe also because we're quite known for our Kenyans, then maybe there's a little bit more enthusiasm for those sometimes. Yeah. And it's interesting, actually, just this week we have been selecting our Kenyan outturns for the coming year. The harvest, the last have actually only just been delivered to the dry mill. So it still needs to be milled, but we had samples shipped up before milling, and then it needs to be hand-picked and vacuum packed and shipped. So it's still at least 2-3 months until it arrives here. But it's a very exciting time, and I'm very excited at some point reveal what we bought, because we have been thinking about you, especially for the coming season. So in wholesale, you're also quite used to going around visiting our wholesale customers, both here in Copenhagen and soon hopefully more internationally as well. And you go out to dial in or help them dial in the coffees. So with two different coffees like the Kieni espresso and the Duver espresso, how would you approach dialing those coffees in?
Specifically for the Kieni espresso, which is one of my absolute favorite espressos that we have, I would say for this one, because the acidity is high, I would go for around 19 grams of coffee in and about 40 grams of water out, and then a run time around 28 to 30 seconds. Because when you push it here, you get a very nice and juicy acidity, but you also get the sweetness and a nice body. It almost has this like oily texture to it, which is incredibly nice.
Yeah, and you really want to get some of that jamminess out of it as well. I also feel like with the Kieni espresso, sometimes when we do espresso trainings, that I want to show an over-extracted shot and I take it to like 35 seconds. And even at that, it doesn't really taste that over-extracted. Like you're not really getting much bitterness out. It just seems like it has so much to give. It's a fun coffee that way, that you can actually really play with it. It's very easy if you under-extract it, that it becomes too sour and one-dimensional. So don't be afraid of pushing it. Grind a little finer, try to see how much you can actually get out of it and amplify those aromas, especially in that coffee. Yeah.
And I definitely also see with Kieni that it develops very much in especially the texture and the mouthfeel of it, and when you get up there it's very like soft.
They can have so much acidity and still be balanced, but that's because it has so much sweetness and body at the same time that it really works in that way. And then the Duver espresso, that one in my view I would try to more go for the balance there. Like that's not gonna have like crazy aromas. It has some acidity but not as much as the Kieni. So for me, I would probably keep the ratio a bit similar, like a 1:2 ratio, not going much shorter. I think if you go shorter, the acidity tends to become a little too disruptive for the whole taste balance. But I would probably try to take it a little faster, so 26, 27 seconds. And I should note at this point that all these seconds, I mean, we are using really good grinders, so everything has to be accommodated for the water, the grinder, the machine that you're using at home. So try to experiment, but I do think it's sometimes nice to have a starting point and then see, well, how can you take it differently from there.
But I think it's also a lot about, we do this every day in our bars as well, and a lot of our wholesale clients do it as well, where we keep track of every brew that we do. Have like a sheet for yourself where you can write down, okay, I did around this, like grind size, it ran like this, use this many grams and stuff, because then you can sort of track the development in it and also put on some flavor notes. What do you experience? And it's also super fun for yourself, seeing how you develop in tasting the coffee and working with the coffee every day. So I would also recommend keeping track for yourself.
And that way you'll also see that a lot of the Colombians act quite the same. So they probably need the same kind of adjustment on your grinder and the same kind of ratio to perform the best. And then you'll have a different preference for Kenyans or Ethiopians, and definitely for naturals when we come to that. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, thank you a lot for joining me today.
Yes,
it's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your insights into the world of wholesale as well. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time around for 2 new exciting coffees.